So as you can see, this is our menu for today. Thank you for arriving a bit earlier. I really appreciate the understanding. So we'll start with a review of sub-skills. What does listening involve? And then we'll look at some effective listening strategies and a framework for planning a lesson. Then we'll look at the IELTS paper and the types of tasks you'll find there. We'll kind of zoom in on an activity for dealing with the plan, map, or diagram labeling. And we'll finish with a Kahoot quiz about the listening paper. All right. So let's begin. So you got the whiteboard there to refer to later. Okay. So, listening, one of the four language skills. What are the other three? What are the other three language skills?
Speaking, reading, writing.
Yeah. So it's receptive skill. What is the other receptive skill?
Speaking,
No.
Reading.
Reading, yes. Yeah, it's to do with input, isn't it? So writing, speaking is a productive skill. Yeah. Because it's something that language that is produced by us. And there's another productive skill, isn't there? Apart from speaking, beginning with W. Writing, yes. So it involves making sense of the meaningful sounds of a language. And we could say that it's to do with dealing with the characteristics of the spoken language. So what could we say the characteristics of the spoken language? Well, we could mention stress, rhythm, intonation. It's also to do with the context and our previous knowledge of the world. Yeah, a bit like with reading skills, where we need to activate schemata before we or activate our students' background knowledge before we give them a reading or listening. It could be understanding the nature of texts. So these are different types of spoken texts. Remember, texts can be written or spoken, but there are different types of spoken texts, aren't there? There's interviews. Can you think of any others? How about monologues? Dialogues, trialogues even, right? And those are the audio spoken texts that students will have to deal with on the IELTS exam. And they'll have to manage different rates of speed and different accents. Yeah, they'll have all kinds of English accents of English, varieties of English on the IELTS paper, whether it's Indian, Australian, North American. Yeah. So, would you say that listening is difficult? Why or why not? Do you find it difficult listening in English or listening in a foreign language? Well, I've been living in Mexico for how long? 27 years, and I still find when I'm watching a Spanish language TV program, I still have to have some subtitles on, especially for when we're talking about a program that's not from Mexico. Maria Antonia, do you find it difficult?
I mean, I just wanted to share an experience when I was at a university. So I studied more the languages, and I didn't study at a bilingual school. So listening was the hardest skills for me at the university. So I think it's because I was not used to the language. I lacked off a lot of vocabulary and those kind of things. And also because in a Colombian context, it's very difficult for you to interact with others in a completely bilingual context. So
Right.
for me it was very, very difficult. Now I got much better after the time, but that was the most challenging one. Then I think with the practice, with the time, with the works where I have been worked in, I find now I find it easier, but yeah, it's very hard when you are not in an immersive context of English. Yeah,
Quite
easy.
right, yes. I think Christian, you were going to say something, weren't you? Yeah, I think you opened your mic. Yeah, well, welcome to other people arriving recently. You haven't missed very much, don't worry. Of course, I'm recording it so you can go back at the end and watch the beginning. But let me just, those who've just arrived, let me just show you what our menu for the day is. I'll just put it into the chat directly. So, I'm going to give you a little quiz about how are you a good listener? Okay. Please click on the link. And I'd like you to evaluate yourself as you actually are and not as you think you should be. I mean, that's the first one is something I actually do tend to do. Yeah, so I might say sometimes for that one. Right? So please click on the link and give you about 4 or 5 minutes to read through the points and choose. Remember, it's evaluate yourself as you are. Yeah, don't try and make value judgments. Just try and choose the one that represents the way you are. So to be more productive, I respond to emails while I'm speaking on the phone. I repeat points back during a conversation to clarify my understanding of what the other person's saying. When people speak to me about sensitive subjects, I make an effort to put them at ease. I feel uncomfortable with silence during conversation. As I learn Icon's viewpoint with my own. To get people to elaborate on their point, I ask open questions. Ones that can't be answered with yes or no. When someone is speaking, I nod and say things like, okay, occasionally. Catch myself asking leading questions to encourage the other person to agree with my viewpoint. I interrupt people. When people speak to me, I stay completely still so that I don't distract them. I try to read the other person's body language as I listen. If the other person is struggling to explain something, I jump in with my own suggestions. Sounds like a male thing, doesn't it? Okay, so once you've marked your choices, don't submit yet. Actually, I think you can submit if you wish. Yeah. Actually, don't submit yet because I think we need to compare. Yeah, actually need to figure out what the scores are. Okay, sorry about that. So,
I think I submitted already.
okay, well, why don't you do it again, but with put exactly the same scores in, exactly the same choices, okay?
Okay.
Because you can submit another one. All right. Okay, now I'm going to show you what the scores are. All right, so do another one. It doesn't matter if you've already submitted it. Do another one so that you can see what your scores are, because here are the scores. Sending them now. Okay. And how do we interpret the scores? Well, now, if you add up your scores, if you got between 14 and 19, improvement needed. 30 and 49, your listening skills are okay, but you can definitely improve them further. If you got between 50 and 72, you've got good listening skills, right? If you want to improve them further, you could go on to Mind Tools and take some coaching. Now, the only problem with that is that you've got to pay for it, so it's not for free. But now I'm going to put you into groups, and I'd like you to compare your scores together. Okay. I'm going to put you in groups of 3. So tell the other people. Are you a good listener? Are you an okay listener? Or is there serious room for improvement? Okay, thanks. Into the breakout rooms we go. It's kind of difficult to see the bars here down at the bottom. But which ones were the most frequently answered? Sometimes people do that. Responding to emails while I'm speaking, repeating back. That's regarded as a good listening skill, isn't it? Repeating back. So people actually do that quite often. When people speak to me about sensitive topics, I make an effort to put them at ease. People, yeah, quite often, very often. So it looks like we've got some good listeners here. I feel uncomfortable with silence. Now, that's kind of a cultural thing, isn't it? No? Not at all. I'm glad people don't feel uncomfortable. That's good. As I listen, I compare the other person's viewpoint with my own, and that was also quite high. To get people elaborate on their points, I ask open questions. Yeah, quite often. Someone speaking to me, I nod and use what we call phatic language. Yeah, for active listening, again, quite high. Leading questions to agree with my viewpoint. That's not such a good listening skill, though, is it? That one. I interrupt people. Not at all. Sometimes. Stay completely still. Try to read each other's body language. That's a good skill, isn't it? Yeah. Some quite high, very often. Struggling to explain, I jump in with my own suggestions. Is that a male thing? Is that a gender thing, do you think? Let's have a look at the scores. So were there any very high scores? 50 and above? Did anyone got 50 above? Raise your hand. No one? No one got 50. Oh, Maria, Antonia.
And also Pau Peris.
Paula, okay.
Yeah.
What about in the middle, 30 to 49? No one in the middle? And what about at the low end? Were there any 14 to 29s? No one? If you were 14 to 29, raise your hand or show me a fist. Okay. So I assume most people were in the middle. Let's move on to active listening. So there are various behaviors associated with active listening. We've already mentioned open and closed questioning, clarification, asking for clarification, summarizing what the speaker has said, trying to show interest, perhaps using listening for feelings, signaling encouragement, yeah, nodding, gesturing, observing non-verbal behavior, avoiding interruption and distraction. Probe. Probe means probach, really, doesn't it? It means to test understanding, right? By asking further questions and reflect and avoid prejudice. So, effective listening involves integrating and exchanging information, learning from what you hear, and it means the ways in which participants interpret, predict and summarize the components of spoken language. Am I missing anything? So what do students listen to in real life? Songs, TV programs, computer games, concerts, live or streaming, broadcasting, videos on the internet, chats. Are we missing anything?
Maybe podcast.
Oh, podcasts. Yes, indeed. Well, and so that all of this emphasizes that students have to have a purpose, a reason, or a need to listen because they want to get new information, the topic is interesting or relevant to them, they're curious about the topic, and they want to have fun. And entertainment, so motivation is pretty important, isn't it, when we're trying to teach listening? So in real life, students usually know in advance something about what's going to be said, like who is speaking or what the topic is, the context. They're usually motivated or curious to listen and have a purpose or a task. So in the classroom, we need to mirror that, don't we? Introduce what the listening is going to be about, setting the context, arouse the student's curiosity about the topic, and create a need for listening, like giving a task. Yeah, not just playing the audio and say, listen to this. Now, in real life, every time that students listen to something, there's a reaction about it. They may react by doing something, drawing, writing, speaking. They should plan activities. Teachers should plan activities where students will have the opportunity to express their reactions through writing, speaking, and drawing. That leads us on to top-down and bottom-up listening strategies. Now, top-down happens when we use our background knowledge to make the sense of what we're listening to. What we already know about the topic, the story, or information we're listening to fits into a previously established schema. Plural schemata. Now, bottom up, when we understand language sound by sound or word by word, with less use of background knowledge. So it's similar to reading in that aspect, isn't it? We use top-down reading skills with things like reading for gist, looking at the back of our book, right, to get the gist of what it's about, Catcher in the Rye. And then bottom-up reading, where we're reading closely the sentences, every word, if necessary. So, similar to reading lesson. Pre, while, and post. So this in the pre-task, there's our schemata activation to get those top-down strategies going. And we also pre-teach some vocabulary. We give students a purpose for listening, make sure that it's interesting and relevant during the while. And there's a post, reflect on what they've found hard in the recording and what they did about it. Ask them 3 key things they learned. Pre-listening tasks. Establish the topic or situation. Elicit language. Pre-teach interesting words or facts. Give instructions and make predictions about what the topic of the text is going to be about. Now then, we've got our while listening activities, intended to provide students with different sub-skills to develop the skill or ability itself. It's also a way to use grammar, vocabulary functions through different media. So activities should be planned to practice a sub-skill. So here are some sub-skills that we may teach and may encounter on the IELTS exam. Listening for general understanding or gist, listening for specific information, listening for detail, listening to recognize grammar patterns, intentional attitude, and extensive listening, which is more like what we would do with a podcast. It's listening for pleasure. Post-listening activities. Provide students with a follow-up. Examples could be role plays. They could write in response to something that they've heard, like a listening broadcast on a radio news story, and they have to write in to express their opinion, and other speaking activities. Now, what we're all been waiting for really is the IELTS. It's the IELTS advice for this, the masterclass advice. Hoping this won't take too long, so we can actually get on with something more interactive. So, which listening skills, sub-skills are relevant for IELTS, the IELTS exam? So these are the ones they've highlighted as being particularly relevant for IELTS. Predicting, recognizing synonyms and paraphrasing, recognizing distractors, understanding connected speech. Do you know what paraphrasing means? Anyone could give me an example of what paraphrasing is, or a definition of that?
When you try to say something with another word.
Yes, you say something, you sort of reformulate something in your own words, don't you? Yeah. Then we have this thing about recognizing distractors. And that's peculiar to tests, isn't it? To exams. We don't usually see many distractors in real life, but those are options when you get multiple choice, when they're deliberately put there to mislead you, right? So that you have to find the right answer. Okay, and then connected speech. Would you say that that's the most difficult part of listening for many students? when they're listening to native speakers, connected speech? Can you think of any examples that might cause problems related to connected speech?
I think one problem they sometimes have is with some phrasal verbs. When they
Right.
listen to phrasal verbs and object pronouns together, that
Yeah.
could be something challenging for them. They tend to listen to them or try to identify them separately.
Yeah. Yeah, looking at a book like this, it's quite interesting. A to Z of ELT, and you look up the word, you look at connected speech, and it gives you some typical problems. Like, for example, elision. This is happens when a sound is omitted because another similar sound follows. This often happens when two plosive sounds occur together, as in, I walk to work. So walked to is pronounced walked. Yeah, walk to work. And liaison. This is where sounds are introduced at word boundaries, especially after words ending in vowel sounds, as in law and order, law and order. Yeah, it's something that becomes one word. Yeah. So that sort of thing can provide real difficulties for students, right? When they're listening. Connected speech. And they have to be aware that this is happening. So, first thing is like understanding the context. So how can we help students understand the recording better in the 30 seconds before the audio starts? Why is this part so important? What types of exercises can you use to help them in this part? Does anyone have any experience of this? If you've taught exams before, you may be familiar with this importance of teaching them, making them aware of the context. All right, so here's an example. Now, the numbers, the section on the left here refers to section of the listening test, right? This is the list there are 4 sections, right? And here we've got like a listening for specific information. So total number of guests, and Susie will organize the invitations and something else. So what is the context? Well, if we look down at the bottom, the example given is organizing a party, right? So when the students are reading the questions before they listen, they need to quickly think what the context is, right? Because that's going to help them with the prediction. Right? How about number 2? What type of gift does the speaker recommend for a child's birthday? What's the context there? Is it A, B, C?
That one is
Yeah. What about number 2 there? What type of gift does the speaker recommend for a child's birthday? What's the context? You can put your answer in the chat if you're having problems. Yes, it's buying presents. Thank you, Grace. Yeah. Yes, it is. It's E. Now, what about number 3? The students chose this topic because they have a lot of information about it. They would like to learn more about it. They think they will get a higher mark, right? So when they're identifying the context, they need to look for keywords, don't they? So it's probably something academic. Grace says it's B. Yes, you're right. It's so that's discussing an assignment. And aim to assess the impact of loss of habitat on native animals. Methods: calculate the current number of native animal species, study their movements by attaching. And there's a missing word there, so it's probably some sort of tag, right? Yeah, it's a research project, isn't it? Thank you, John. Thank you, Arnold. You are right. All right, so the importance of activating understanding of context cannot be underestimated. All right, so let's move on. Stop sharing a second. It seems to have frozen up on me. There we go. Okay, so understanding the context. A tip here, before you do each section, the students have 30 to 45 seconds to look at the questions. They should use this time to study the questions and try to predict what they might hear. In the introduction to the listening section, they will be told who the people are, what they are talking about, and why. This is the context. It helps them to understand the topic. It's not written on the question paper. After the introduction, they get a short time to look at the questions. So, studying the questions before they listen can help them predict what the speakers will talk about. Make sense? Now, on to following a conversation. Important function that's tested in the listening test. So in what sections of the exam do students have to follow a conversation? No. There's 2 sections of the exam. Do you know which ones they are? And which they have to follow a conversation? Is it it's not 2, it's 3. Yeah, part 3, section 3, and 4, no, 4 is usually a monologue, actually. Yeah, so it's 1 and 3, according to my answers. I don't think it's changed. All right. So what skills do they need to develop to choose the right answer? Any suggestions?
Maybe they can start by predicting a possible answer based on the question they have.
That wouldn't harm. Certainly would be no harm in doing that, yes. Although, doesn't seem that, yeah, I mean, I guess we could make predictions based on these questions, couldn't we? But let's have a look at the let's have a look at the audio script and see if it gives you an idea of what skills they need to develop to choose the right answer and what information they need to identify. Can you see the audio script now? Yeah, have a look. And look at some of the language used. Like this. Why don't we just order some pizzas? What about a barbecue? And we could just do some hot dogs. And responding, right? That's a good idea. That's easy enough. Pizzas it is then. What about music? I think we should just do them on a computer. Keep costs down. So, identifying keywords, spotting distractors. Yes. Thanks for sharing that, Arnold. But what function? Do you know about functional language? I'm sure you've heard of that, right? Functions. Yeah. So, B, why don't we all just order some pizzas? Thank you, Maria Antoinetta. I'll record the rest of it for you. So these are what we call functions, aren't we? Yeah, it's making a suggestion, isn't it? Yeah. And A here sort of responds to a suggestion, yeah. And agreeing and also disagreeing, you can see those functions. You know, politely, right? So, just to summarize, so sections 1 and 3 are conversations between 2 or 3 people. Each speaker has a different voice to help the students tell them apart, like male or female, younger or older. Both speakers talk equally. You hear answers from both. For section 1, there's usually one person who has to find out information from the other. Each speaker has a specific purpose in mind when they talk. So we say their language has a function, and so we use different language for different functions. All right. So that's going to help if you use tape audio scripts and with sample listenings and get them to identify the different functions. Yeah. Now, recognizing attitude and opinion. In what section can we find this type of exercise? Any ideas? Cesar says section 2. That's not the answer it says says here 1 and 3. Right? Uh-huh. So what do candidates have to do here? Uh, so probably follow trying to follow the logic of the speakers, right? Because there are 2 or 3 of them, so following the logic of the argument would be the difficult part. Yeah. And to do that, they're going to need to recognize or identify the speaker's opinions. So how can we help students with this? Well, we could use the transcript to identify paraphrases and functional language. Stop there and let's find some examples of. So here's an activity that can be designed. 2.4, you see there, it says, look at the recording script 25 and find phrases which are used to do the things below. So making a suggestion. Can you see in the audio script an example of making a suggestion? There are a couple of examples, aren't there?
Where it says like, I saw one that says like perhaps. Give me 1 second. I just lost it.
Yeah.
I think perhaps we could leave some out.
Yeah, it is. That's an example. Yeah. Other examples would be let's organize our presentation on the new science equipment, shall we? Right? That shall we, this typical way of making a suggestion. It's quite a polite way, isn't it? A bit formal, but this is an academic context, so it's appropriate to use that sort of more formal language, shall we? And then another person says, why don't we go through each section then? Yeah. That's also a suggestion.
Another one would be that will help grab the attention. Now, next we look at the benefits of technology.
Indeed,
Right?
yeah.
The first one that
Yeah.
will help.
Yeah. And of course, they're going to need to identify language of agreement. Of course, great idea. And so this sort of gap activity. They have to listen. Maybe they've done a listening for gist activity. They listen a second time, and then they've got to complete these missing words to make them focus on the functional language. Right? Now, this is more of an activity you do with your students in your exam preparation class, right? To make them zero in on this functional language. So, here's a summary of recognizing attitudes and opinions. Listening sections 1 and 3, students are often trying to make a decision or reach an agreement. Identify the speaker's opinions can help you to answer the question correctly. So persuading or suggesting. In order to reach a decision, you will hear the speakers make suggestions, agree, or try to persuade each other. In listening sections 1 and 3, they'll hear people suggesting solutions, reaching a decision. So a discussion might focus on the advantages and disadvantages of each suggestion. Sorry, it's got blocked, isn't it, by this image, which is a bit annoying. I can't move it. Okay. Now, let's focus on part of the listening paper, and let's do an activity, because there's enough of me speaking. All right, for some questions in the listening paper, you need to look at a map of a place or a plan of a building. And here is an example of a plan, a town library. What do you think is going to be the trickiest part of this type of task?
That one I
Well, it
consider that is the
depends.
trickiest. I'm sorry, Grace, go ahead.
No,
Yeah,
it's okay.
Rosa. Go ahead, Rosa.
Okay, this is the trickiest part to me because I'm having problems with my right and left, right? So I have to focus. So to teach that is kind of hard. Why? Because one thing is what you see on the screen, and the other one is when you're handling that with the right and left yourself. For example, regularly they say, you know that it is the entrance tourist information, and then they say, go ahead and turn right, or on your right side and then your left side. So sometimes it is confusing. So what I'm doing is, perhaps with my students, I help them with a smiley face to the right, the right hand, and the left hand they were playing. So they focus on where they are, right? Basically, because I think that is very tough.
Yeah. And some students may not have this sort of spatial awareness, right? And awareness of, as you say, like left and right and up and down. Yeah. And then you've got all these labels to deal with. So students are probably not going to be that very familiar with this type of listening activity, basically, are they? Okay. Now we're going to do a mini sort of activity together with precisely this task shortly. But let's just go over the tips before we do it. So students should study the map or plan carefully before they listen. Having a clear image in their mind will help them understand what they hear. Now, following directions. They may need to follow directions to locate the place on the map or plan. Now, the distractors for this type of task might be extra buildings marked on the map, or there might be extra options in a list of possible answers. So this is probably going to be the trickiest part, right? Not all of these labels, A to I, are going to be relevant. Some of them are distractors. Labeling a map. Sometimes a map completion task asks them to identify an area on a map, then choose an answer from a list. For this type of question, students need to familiarize themselves with both the list of options and the features on the map before they start. Okay, let's do an activity like this, shall we? Now, I'm going to send you the materials through the chat. Watch out for them coming through. Here's the handout. So the task is to label the plan below, choosing 5 answers from the box, write the correct answers A to I next to the questions 11 to 15. And there you've got the audio script. See if you can do it without the audio script. First of all, now, first question for you. Where do you think the tour of the library might start? Okay. If possible at this point, cover the answers, the possible answers. Just kind of cover those up, okay? Where do you think the tour of the library might begin? If you were going on a tour of this library, probably at the entrance, right?
Yep. Actually, that's one of the tips I give to my students. Actually, tell them that the speaker is always gonna place the listeners on a specific point.
Yeah. So it's probably from the entrance. Now let's practice the basic language of directions. Right? So write in this chat some basic instructions for directions. So turn left. Yeah. Go to your right. Yeah. How about go straight on? Go ahead, yeah, go straight on. How about go through, go past? How about opposite? Yeah. Opposite useful, yeah. Now, I'm going to choose someone random. How about Grace? Grace, can you tell us, give us the directions from the entrance to the seminar room?
Oh my gosh, I was about to say that I struggle with this because I usually confuse right and left, go straight. So I'm gonna say the starting point is the entrance. And then you might find the librarian's desk on, on the right side.
Yeah.
And if you keep walking through the main hall or something, you're gonna find a place.
Good. Andrea, can you give us the directions from the entrance to the library office? Andrea, can you give us the directions from the entrance to the library office?
Yes. Go straight on onto the library area. It's on the right.
Uh-huh.
It's going on the on the left, and you find the library office.
Okay, but yeah, don't you have to go through the room marked 12? So you have to turn right and go through the room marked 12, and then there's a door in the library office, right? How about John? Can you tell us the directions from the entrance to the non-fiction section?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. Well, you need to walk straight on. You need to pass the first room, which is the librarian desk.
Yeah.
As you go through, you will see the library office on your right. And you need to keep walking. What was the place, pardon me?
Non-fiction.
Non-fiction, right. Then you have to turn right, and then you will see the non-fiction room.
Right. Yeah. So it's a good idea to give students practice giving directions, obviously, for this type of task, yeah? And so have those students work in pairs. You could get the students to label the rooms in any order that they like, using the list of rooms, and then have student A give student B a tour of the library using the language that you just elicited. And it's a good idea to have some of this on the board, right? Perhaps give them some lesser known expressions like turn sharp right, just past the. Also, drill the pronunciation, draw attention to the form, and elicit an example of how it could be used. Now, if you're teaching online, you can put it on a Google form. So please click on the Google form and let's do this activity together. And this is what you should get. Please give me your thumbs up. Give me your thumb just to confirm. Okay. So there's quite a few distractors here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So only 5 possible answers. 3 are not going to be correct. Now, I'm going to start the audio. And when you hear the first couple of sentences, I want you to point on the map to indicate where the speaker is. Let's listen.
You'll hear the librarian of a new town library talking to a group of people who are visiting the library.
Okay, everyone. So, here we are at the entrance to the town library. My name is Anne, and I'm the chief librarian here, and you'll usually find me at the desk just by the main entrance here.
All right, so have you located her where she works? Yeah, so is this place here, right? Librarian's desk. Okay, let's play the whole thing. How many times shall I play it?
1.
Guess once, yeah, to be realistic. Okay. Don't submit your answers yet. Choose your answers, but don't submit it until I've put you into breakout rooms. Okay. Then I'd like you to compare your answers together and have a look at the audio script if you need to, right? And discuss what clues led you to that answer. All right, so I'll play it once and then I'll put you, I'll ask you to choose your answer. You go to breakout rooms, compare your answers. Finally, you'll submit your answers.
So, I'd like to tell you a bit about the way the library is organised and what you'll find where. And you should all have a plan in front of you. Well, as you see, my desk is just on your right as you go in. And opposite this, the first room on your left has an excellent collection of reference books and is also a place where people can read or study peacefully. Just beyond the librarian's desk on the right is a room where we have up-to-date periodicals, such as newspapers and magazines. And this room also has a photocopier, in case you want to copy any of the articles. If you carry straight on, you'll come into a large room, and this is the main library area. There is fiction in the shelves on the left, and non-fiction materials on your right, and on the shelves on the far wall, there is an excellent collection of books relating to local history. We're hoping to add a section on local tourist attractions too, later in the year. Through the far door in the library, just past the fiction shelves, is a seminar room, and that can be booked for meetings or talks. And next door to that is the children's library, which has a good collection of stories and picture books for the under 11s. Then there's a large room to the right of the library area. That's the multimedia collection, where you can borrow DVDs and so on. And we also have CD-ROMs you can borrow to use on your computer at home. It was originally the art collection, but that's been moved to another building. And that's about it. Oh, there's also the library office on the left of the librarian's desk. Okay. Now, does anyone have any questions? Yes, thank you, sir.
All right, I'm not going to play it again because you do have the audio script. I'd like you now to choose your answers, but don't submit them yet, because I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, and you can use the audio script to justify your choices. Okay, 4 minutes. That's all we have time for. Please go compare. Some of you said that you found it quite easy compared to ones you've done previously. So now, please submit your answers. Let's see. The answers were like. Okay, yes, the first one was reference books. Yeah. 9 out of 10. 90% got us right. So it must, yeah. It's been fairly okay. Number 12 was G. Yep. 13. D. Correct. Local history. 14. No one got that one right. It was actually computers. B. Oh, no, it was. I'm sorry. I must have made a mistake there. The answer actually was children's books, 14. So you were right. Sorry. And on 15, just be careful when you're making these Google forms. They are prone to human error. 15 is F, correct. Multimedia. Hey. So that's diagrams and so on. Following directions. But we shouldn't omit. We should do mention following a talk. Right, now this is section 4. Typically is a talk. Okay, and students have to complete the missing words. Not always, but here's a typical section 4 task. So, what can we do to help students get more answers in section 4? Can we build a lesson around it? Have pre-listening activities while they listen, after they listen? Any suggestions?
Yeah, I want to talk about this one because I actually used it the last week with my 11th graders. Exactly the same. So I told them.
What did you do in the pre?
Content.
Yeah, predict.
So they were predicting content.
Yeah.
And I told them to start finding synonyms. What else? That they might paraphrase. So for instance, in part 1, where it says potatoes origins, it says Spaniards. But if I'm not mistaken, the audio says Spanish something.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was your lesson, but this lesson was plants that changed the world, right? So this is kind of interesting for Latin American students, isn't it? Because you can bring up plants that are from the Americas, right? Particularly potatoes, tobacco, tomatoes, chilies, yeah. Oh, but there's also some ones from China, aren't there? Yeah. So, what can they do while they listen?
But pre-listen, I think what they can do well, what we can do is to show the image for 10 seconds. We cover the image and we ask them the amount of words they could get. Why? Because regularly they give you 20 seconds to read the entire chart. And the more words you get, better.
Okay, that sounds more like a while listening activity though, Rosa. But if you're teaching a class around this topic of plants that change the world, wouldn't you need a pre-listening activity that, I don't know, gets them talking about the different plants before they actually do the listening? Because don't we need to activate their background knowledge? their schemata. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But then, as you say, while they listen, what could they do then? Well, how about signposting words? Could be something that would be useful to help them follow a talk. You could teach them about signposting words. Signposting, what do you understand by that? This word signposting.
Like
Anyone?
label?
Like words that you use to guide the.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So we use signposting words in the notes to help you guide through the topics and the questions. Right. So again, it's a bit like functional language. We need to identify words to start off a topic, to change a new topic, to finish off a topic. Yeah. Let's have a look at the audio script. It might make it a bit clearer. It's a bit difficult unless you see the audio script. So, can you see some signposting words? Here. Can you identify signposting words in the transcript? You can just call them out if you see them.
Now,
Right.
paragraph 3.
Maybe when they say like on the downside, so we know that they're going to mention something that is like negative.
Right. On the downside. Yeah.
Mhm.
The final.
The final plant, yeah. So that helps them to signal that it's the final box there below.
The next plant, perhaps.
Yeah, the next plant.
Paragraph 3.
Yeah.
In the first paragraph, another plant from the same part.
Can you repeat that? Oh,
First,
yes, another
no,
another plant from the same part of the world. Yes.
yeah, that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So they've already talked about potatoes, but now they're talking about tobacco, right? And tea, and then the white mulberry. Yeah. So you could notice that the key words are war, cash, crop. Yeah. And those are the words that go in here, cash and war. And this would be tea, tax, and started in China. Oh, is this a war?
China is in the
Oh,
region.
no. Oh, it started trade, right? Started trade between. Yeah, notice the word establishing. So that's a synonym with started, isn't it? Hmm. So they're going to need synonyms as well for this, aren't they? Okay, cool. Time is moving on. There we go. So following a talk, what are the tips here? Questions in the listening paper will focus on the main points made by the speakers, so it's important for students to be able to identify them. Understanding the explanation. To help prepare for the listening, they need to read the information in the questions carefully and try and predict what information they will hear. They shouldn't be worried if they see technical terms in the listening questions. They will usually be explained, and sometimes they have glossaries. Signposting words. A shift in the topic often indicates that they should move on to the next question. They should use signposting words as well as headings in the notes to help them guide through the topics and the questions. That makes sense? So that's a key thing to note with following the talk. Signposting words, as well as identifying main ideas and the explanation. So summarizing advice. They are allowed to read through the questions before each section and to check their answers before going on to the next section. Emphasize they shouldn't waste this valuable time. Make sure that they read the questions first. If they know in advance what they have to look for, they are more likely to find the right answer. Highlight or underline keywords in the questions. This will help them focus. When they have read the questions for the next section, they should try and guess the kinds of words that they might expect. For example, if you see there's a question about climate change, they should think of related vocabulary that they might expect to hear. Global warming, rising sea levels. They should keep those in mind when listening. They need to look at more than one question at a time. Always be one step ahead. For example, if they're up to question 3, they also need to look ahead to question 4. The questions on their question paper follow the order of the recording. So if they miss question 3 but hear the answer to question 4, they must leave question 3 and go on to question 5. They can go back to question 3 at the end of that section, or after the end of the recording. Try and make an informed guess about the answer. As with the reading test, they must never leave a blank space. After listening to the recording, they have 10 minutes to transfer their answers to the answer sheet. Okay. Obviously, that's the paper version. On the computer version, they're writing it on the screen. They should be careful not to copy across words from the printed question paper, such as articles or prepositions, which may take them over the word limit. They would lose marks if they did this. A speaker's intonation or tone of voice can indicate their attitude to something, either positive or negative. This can be helpful in finding a right answer. So make them aware of the importance of intonation with listening. You know, the way the voice rises in tone, falls in tone. Okay. Any questions before we go to our Kahoot quiz? See how much you know about the listening paper.
No, sir.
All right.
Not really, thank you.
Let's go to the Kahoot quiz then. Let's start. How many questions are there? Forty. Good job. Next. How many types of question does the listening test mainly have? Yeah, the answer is 3. Good job. Are there any restrictions in the number of words for each answer? Yes, it's 4, isn't it? Yeah. Yes, there are. There are some restrictions. So, but you won't know until you read the question paper. Spelling a problem? Yes, yeah. So spelling is a problem. So to be careful with that. Things we write on the question and the test paper are then marked. So the answer is no. Yeah, that's the where the questions are. No. It's not the same as the answer paper. Grammar a problem. Yeah. Do we have to be precise with plural nouns? Yes, indeed. Capitalization important. Ah, the answer is no. So you can write in uppercase or lowercase, guess. They won't penalize you if you use either one. Questions in the text, appear in order. Answer is yes. Do you have time to read and check our answers? Yeah. How many chances do we have to read the questions in 1, 2, and 3? Yeah, only 2. Okay, next. How many chances do we have to read the questions in section 1? Section 4. Yeah, just the one time. Tough one. Penultimate. Can we use pens or pencils? Of course, this doesn't apply to the computer-based one. You've got to use a keyboard. Pencils. Can we use abbreviations in the answers? Ah, sometimes. If we're asked to use abbreviations, then we should use them. Okay, so how did we do? Grace, looks like you're the winner. Well done. Oh, no, we've got one more. Are there true, false, or not given? No, there aren't. Not on the actual test. Although we may want to use them in our reading skills development or listening skills development with our students. Grace is the star. Well done, Grace.
Cheers.
Now,
I thought
so,
perhaps capitalization was important there. I didn't know that.
yeah, I'm not sure why it isn't, but I guess what they're looking for is as long as the answer is expressed clearly and accurately in terms of the meaning.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a bit difficult to say without an example, isn't it? There you go. So, today's the 29th. So we've done our session on the listening paper. So we're switching to productive skills. So on the 13th of May, see you here and we'll focus on the writing paper. All right. Some people find that the most difficult. All right, so you've got 3 hours of self-study on the Padlet, on the, not the Padlet, the Neo platform. Good. So any questions, worries, concerns that you might have before we finish?
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
And see
Thank
you
you,
on
Andrew.
the 13th in just over 2 weeks.
Perfect.
Bye-bye.
Bye
See ya.
bye,
Bye.
Siam.
Thank
Thank you.
you very much.
Bye,
Bye.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.